welcome to the Mink and the Monk. My name is Brad Monkel. That is the other host.
See, this is why you usually do it, man.
Yeah. And we're joined today by the amazing Machan Taylor. I'm really excited to finally meet you, Machan. You have an amazing resume of work over your career with Sting, Pink Floyd, George Benson. I mean, a bunch of people we're going to get to talking about.
You're such a name dropper. My God.
Well,
that old joke. You know, Bruce Springsteen once told me, you really shouldn't name drop. That's an old Johnny Ross joke. Anyway, yes.
Well, no, I mean, I've really been enjoying checking out more of your stuff, and I mean, I've known about some of the stuff for a while now. I'm a fan of Hiroshima.
Oh, wow.
I love.
You've been doing your homework.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of awesome stuff to do. I mean, I figured just give the listeners a taste of what we're gonna get to. But you're also a teacher who you know a lot about vocals, and I'd love to talk more about, I guess, like the technique behind vocals and everything. Mm-hmm. But how's work going right now? I mean, we're just getting out of the pandemic, and I'm sure you're still
we're not
busy,
out of it,
but not out of it, but like out of this last wave, and the spring, things are really opening up. I know you're down in the city a lot, mm-hmm. So how's work been going right now?
It's going. It's crazy being masked all the time. I'm at NYU and the new school, so it's New York City, so it's a whole other demographic and environment that we're in. So it's been stressful to say the least.
Yeah, this almost didn't happen again today because of a different scare with students getting COVID.
Yeah, me getting a notice like, you may have been exposed. It's like, oh no.
Yeah. And when we had, so how many instant, or was it, so you did a PCR recently test? I
did one on Wednesday. I got my result yesterday and I'm fine. Even though I'm suffering with allergies and I'm getting over just a cold from last week, but so far so good.
How many tests would you say you've taken this year?
Oh my God. Like more than anyone should ever have to take.
Yeah. It's been kind of nutty.
But it's our reality now, I think.
And you're still masking in the city?
Oh yeah, right. All the time.
We're not. Are you masked?
There's rarely places in Albany that are requiring it, or
right. Yeah, it seems like we're pretty much straight ahead in the northern part of the state.
Well, New York City, you have to watch out not only for the germs, you might get shot.
Well, that was another thing I wanted to ask you about. I mean,
Brooklyn.
Yeah, I mean,
Brooklyn in the house.
I was on the train, not that train, obviously. I was on the subway. Like I was just going down to the city that morning, last Tuesday morning, and I had just gotten off the bus, got on the A train to go to Brooklyn. And when I got to school, I had heard about the shooting.
Wow. And what line was it on?
I think it was the R.
The R, okay.
Or the N, one of those, coming from, oh gosh, what was that area? It's an area in Brooklyn that's sort of southeast, I guess.
Not East New York, not because that's the A train, right? Going out that way.
Yeah, right.
But this is, I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever, the only time I've ridden the train far out, I took the train a couple times to the airport. But that's always the A.
Yeah, no.
That's always the A train, so that's the only one I know that heads out that far.
Yeah, no. This was closer to the city. But anyway, it was scary.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, like I said, I had an apartment down in Brooklyn for a little bit, probably like a little bit towards that area, but maybe more northwest. And I mean, I'm sure you already have a lot to worry about at school with the sickness. I mean,
exactly.
Have you been able to maintain like a comfort down there doing your work and being in on the music and focused on that, or is it distracting?
I would say that for the most part this year, like since September, it's been a lot better, because everyone was so anxious to get back in person and get back to work. But it is distracting when you're, if you're teaching singing and you have a mask on and also the student and you can't see their face. You don't really know what they're doing physically and all of that.
You know what else doesn't read well is sarcasm. I can't tell
No.
if people are serious or not.
No.
So when they say something that's silly, you're like, you can't see the smirk.
You can't see their smile. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you can wear the masks that have the clear, because that's even
No.
weirder.
Yeah, that is
I
weird.
don't know if you've done that.
I haven't seen those.
Oh yeah, I wore them
No,
once,
I
and people just were like, it's very,
It's distracting.
It's really distracting. Just cover up.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Well, I'm glad to hear that you know that that you can at least like laugh a little bit about how crazy it is down there.
we have to. Yeah.
But outside of that work, I know you also have your new single "Heat" out, and
Yeah. It's interesting. It's not a new song. So it's
it dropped this year, right? Like
just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dropped a new.
I guess that word feels right with single, but
Yeah.
I mean, I do want to hear the backstory of it also,
Sure.
but also if you were the producer on it, like how the beat came together and all that. So could you tell us a little more about it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's I teach songwriting at the new school, and I just felt like I needed to put out some songs because I haven't really been doing a lot of gigging and. Because I'm teaching so much, and I'm tired on the weekends.
Yeah, you are. I can.
So I thought, I really need to kind of get my creative juices going again and start putting out some music. So I've actually been going back in my catalog of songs that have never been released, and so I picked that song, and that song has an interesting history because I had a development deal with Blue Note back in just like early 2000s.
Okay.
And Bruce Lundvall was still around. He was still head of the label, and they gave me a development deal. And that song, the original version of that song, was what he loved.
Okay.
Which prompted him to give me some money to cut some more songs. So, long story short, I didn't get the deal. I think Patricia Barbara got signed, if you know who she is.
I don't, but I was going to say, this is sort of is this the Norah Jones era as well?
Yeah, it was kind of the Norah Jones era. But, so things were kind of changing at Blue Note, in terms of what they were signing. But anyway, so I went back into my catalog, and I still thought it was a good song, but I didn't want to just put it out in the form that it was in. So I had all the 24-track tape files digitized, and then I took everything that I could. I saved the horns, the upright bass, but I stripped everything else. So then I started with some loops, and kind of, played around with some real textural stuff. I wanted it to sort of sound like Radiohead or electronica meets jazz, if you will. So I don't know if it's any good, but I just decided to, do it, and I did it all myself. I did it all by myself.
So you did all the production and everything too, because I love the sound of the drums. And
thanks.
The
cool.
Like the way the beat is structured kind of reminds me of do you know Judas by Esperanza Spalding? Yeah, like that's like a song that like the feel kind of reminds me, especially that like halftime during the I think it would be called the verse, but but I mean I was hoping you did the production, because I know you do production, and it's cool to hear an example of it. It sounds so great.
Oh, thanks.
I love the new single.
Thanks.
I also listened to your one from last year. What's that one called again? Was
last year? Did I put something out last year? I don't remember.
You have two singles up there.
No, the one with Danny. With Danny. Burn Down Babylon.
Oh, no, not Burn Down Babylon. I could have... It said something featuring Culture Brown.
Oh, Every Day. That was a remake. That was a remix.
Okay.
I didn't do that remix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was actually done by a guy named Gordie Johnson, who is a Canadian musician, and he's in a band called Big Sugar. They're actually pretty big in Canada. And they're kind of reggae based.
Oh, okay.
And the song had that kind of feel, so he took it even further into that feel.
Oh.
And Culture Brown is a reggae artist from Toronto. So
I think I might have missed this one in my Machan research this week.
Yeah, for a sec I was like, was it a different Machan?
no, you're right.
Awesome.
See, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not even like that deep of like a reggae fan, but I mean, I actually really liked his. I forget the style of singing, but I love him on it.
Yeah, cool.
It was an awesome song. So I guess for the
Thanks.
listeners, check those singles out on Apple Music and
Excellent.
wherever else.
Is it on? Is it?
It's out everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't find it initially through YouTube though, because I was on your YouTube channel and you had literally like the day I was doing it seemed to like post the whole. I was like, oh, that's very kind of you. You saw I was here and you're. But it was just serendipitous, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's where I was checking out a lot of the stuff that you had, like a lot of the promotional stuff.
Got it.
But I don't recall. Now I feel like I missed something. I should know what
No,
we're
that's
talking
fine.
about.
I probably missed a lot of what you listened to. There's too much on.
It's too much, yeah.
This is very difficult to research for. But I mean, there are a lot of different artists that I'd love to talk about.
Please,
but I mean, before we get to those, I mean, I wasn't able to find a whole lot about, what you were started on in music and early gigs you had and like what were your big breaks. So I thought we could kind of talk a little bit about maybe your family and when you
Sure.
started playing music.
Well, where do you want to start? So going back to 1920. How far do you want me to go back?
Well, I don't even know. I know we've talked about this, but I can't remember where you're originally from and what your early experiences might have been. If you had an important teacher or anything along those lines, you know.
Yeah.
And if not, screw them. Who cares? Yeah. Let's hear what, if you have somebody you hated maybe back then that.
Well, I was born in Japan.
Okay.
I was born in Yokohama. My dad was military, American military. And my mother obviously was full-blooded Japanese.
Okay.
So we're talking post-World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was actually a singer. And
really?
Yep. And my grandfather, my mother's father, was a classical pianist and musician. In fact, everybody on my mother's side of the family are musicians. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, my uncles are, one was a sax player, one was a piano player. My grandfather was strict classical, though. He taught at the University of Tokyo, and he taught piano and he taught choral music.
Wow.
Which I actually didn't know till much later in my life. So, yeah, so I guess that's sort of where it comes from.
So were you like a full-on like a military brat? Were you?
No, because we didn't really move around.
Okay.
I think, excuse me, after after the war and my sister and I, who were born in Japan, then my father kind of retired from active duty and became a civilian.
Uh-huh.
So then we came to America, I should say. He wanted to come back and got a job in New York City as a safety engineer for OSHA. So he had a government job, but he was no longer active duty in the military. He was in the reserves.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But my mother was a singer, so there was always music happening in the house, playing records, and she was always singing songs and, mostly jazz stuff, though.
I grew up, I pretty much grew up the same way.
Yeah.
With my mom singing and my dad being a working jazz musician. So it's I can totally understand that.
Mm-hmm. So it just kind of infiltrated, you know.
Was your mom one of those type, like my mom, whenever you would say something, if the expression you used was in a lyric, she would just sing it back to you? Like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but that's like if you ask something, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but she would sing like hundreds of different tunes that would have like that phrase in it. So I just thought that was kind of how my early listening of. Then when I heard the actual song, I was like, oh.
So you grew up in a musical.
Totally.
People breaking out into song.
Yeah, just everywhere. It kind of. Yeah, because my father was always practicing, and then my
Right.
mother was always singing our conversations back to us. So sure, yeah, that's
so
sounds
funny.
very South Park and Broadway. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. It's great. Yeah. So yeah, it's well, the long story short, I guess, is I started singing really young because the fact that my mother was a singer and my older sister was a singer, so we actually used to put on little musicals in the house. My
great.
older sister and I. So it just seemed so natural.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you getting lessons and more formal types of teaching, or was it all just kind of like osmosis and having fun and just kind of?
Yeah, it was kind of just a natural, organic process. But I do remember having piano lessons when I was really young, like maybe 7-ish. And it was with Mrs. Murphy, who was in the neighborhood, But we would do the lesson. She would come to the house. I would do my lesson. But she kind of busted me because what would happen was I would memorize the little pieces that I had to play. So she figured out I wasn't reading, but I was still playing the pieces. So she told my mother, and then my mother said, well, you don't need lessons then if you're not going to do it right.
Oh.
So I got canceled. At an early age. I got canceled.
Yeah, it happens.
Which is really too bad because I just needed a better teacher.
Yeah.
Really.
But I mean, it shows so much ingenuity that you could kind of figure that out and not, and then it took a minute for them to figure out that you were BSing a little bit, but you weren't. You were actually playing music because you heard it.
I heard it and I memorized it and played it.
Yeah, I couldn't do that stuff when I started music. Before I played bass, I was a terrible trombonist for years. I didn't know what I was doing. I could have never BS'd anything.
Yeah. But I used to do that in band, though. I would read. My first instrument was flute, so I would read my guitar parts on the flute and learn them by ear from myself, reading them because I couldn't read on the guitar. But I mean, just whatever you got to do to get over it.
You figured it out.
You figure it out, because you're relating to the sound.
Totally.
I think that's worth celebrating and not saying it's the wrong way. But hey,
absolutely. But I'm still pissed to this day that I didn't have a better teacher.
Yeah.
Funny what we hold on to.
Yeah, look out, Mrs. Murphy.
Yeah, Mrs. Murphy.
Damn it.
Let's find out where she is.
Oh, she's long gone.
So, what year did you move to the U.S.? Like, how old were you?
Now I'm giving away all my secrets. Really?
How old were you?
Oh, how old was I? I was just going on 5.
5. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Mrs. Murphy, this was in New York then.
So this is in New Jersey.
New Jersey.
My
okay.
dad was from Patterson, New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
So we ended up there.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's near the university. There's a university there, right?
Yeah, William Patterson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh.
I should have known.
Oh.
Ulster County Community College is somewhere in Ulster. Yeah, sorry. Anyway.
But I'm a big fan of Japanese culture. I took some Japanese in like middle school and high school.
Oh, really?
I did not retain it well, but I used to love anime and manga and Japanese video games, and I still love a lot of Japanese music and just the appreciation they have for jazz and hip hop and a lot of American music that I love. I mean, what was your memories of living in Japan? What did you feel like you got out of those experiences?
Oh God. It's a lot of vague memories now, but I certainly remember my grandmother and my family, all my mother's family that was there. I remember our house, and I remember I have pictures of certain places. I was so young, and it was my first language. So basically my Japanese language skills are that of a 4-year-old.
Perfect for
Still,
politics.
to this day.
Wow.
So I can order sushi in a restaurant, but that's about it.
Are they impressed? Wow. That's very cool.
No, it's kind of sad that I lost it. But, when we came here and that time, my father really wanted me to assimilate. And he said to my mother, no more Japanese for me, so she stopped talking to me in Japanese. So I kind of lost it,
Wow.
Was the culture still like a strong part of your life? Like when
yeah.
you say assimilate, you mostly mean the language.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and going to school, I started school here. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you, when in Japan, do you feel like your consumption of music was really influenced by America, or were you listening to a lot of like
Totally.
Japanese groups and like traditional Japanese music?
My mother was into American culture, which is why she ended up marrying an American, right? Soldier. She was enamored through movies, through, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and all those films from probably the 40s, right? We're talking 40s.
Yeah, 30s and 40s.
Big band music, American big band music. So that was her influence on me was through those eyes.
Yeah.
Looking at American film and television and
specifically music and dance in those.
Yeah.
So there would have been Frank Sinatra, there would have been Bing Crosby.
Totally.
Yeah.
Peggy Lee. And in fact, my mother took the name of Peggy as her American name.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Because of that?
Because of Peggy Lee.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't you get a chance to sing with Glenn Miller's orchestra for a little bit?
That was my first really big professional gig.
Was she excited about that one? Is that like...
my God, yes. It's like, I made it,
Yeah. So how did that come together?
I had been in a band. I had a band together when I was 16, 17, that time period, in New Jersey with a guy named Grover Kimball, who was actually kind of a mentor of mine coming up. And we did a lot of swing, jazz swing, Lambert Hendrickson Ross material, Cab Calloway, that kind of stuff. But we also, it was a weird time in the business because we were also doing kind of fusion, jazz fusion kind of material. So we were this weird eclectic mix of traditional swing and vocal bebop stuff, but then fusion too,
And nobody was trying to get paid then at that point.
No, but the thing is, we were working like 4 or 5 nights a week.
New York.
In New Jersey.
New Jersey. Yes.
Yeah,
I think of them as the same anyway once you're down there. Yeah.
It is kind of because we played the Bottom Line. We played the Bitter End. We played in Long Island, my father's place. I don't know if you remember that club way back in the day. It was a big place to play. In Roslyn, Long Island. Yeah. Yeah. And the Bottom Line.
Sure.
That was a very important showcase club in the city. And we played Spoleto Jazz Festival. We played Newport Jazz Festival. We actually had developed a really good following. And
this is in your teen years? This like wow. That's
in my
cool.
teen years.
Yeah.
So when I kind of left that group and I felt like I was ready to kind of step out and wanted to move up, so to say, in my career, the agency that booked that band, we were called Grover Margaret and Zazu Zaz. That was the name of the band.
Yeah, I knew Zazu Zaz. That's what I saw it billed as, not as...
Zazu Zaz. Yeah, well, after I left, it just became Zazu Zaz.
Okay.
But in the beginning, it was Grover Margaret Zazu Zaz. So the agency, and this is actually kind of jazz history, was Willard Alexander. And Willard Alexander, who was alive at that time still, he was the big agent for all the big bands.
Oh, I didn't...
From Maynard, for Count Basie, for all the big bands.
Wow.
That was his thing. So when a position came up for the Glenn Miller Orchestra, he got me an audition.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I got it. So I was 19, 20 years old. Yeah.
And how long were you... so that was a road gig. You were out for a while.
Yeah. A couple years.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a lot at 19.
And that was on a Greyhound bus. Everybody gets 2 seats, and that's your space. It's not like serious rock and roll, 5-star hotels, private jets. That came later. But
you were sleeping on this bus?
yeah, we used to do hit and runs.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sounds very uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. But that was the gig, you know.
Yeah. I mean, so was that your first, like you were probably going pretty far out already with your group, and was this like the most traveling you had done? Did it like?
Yeah, that was kind of the beginning of my road life.
Did doing that like teach you anything in particular about like, I guess, like maintaining your musicality over like stretches of performances, like as far as preserving your voice on the road, and also like just musically staying in it, like in your head?
Yes and no, in the sense that I was, 19, 20 years old. So what do you do when you're 19, 20? You party, you know? I mean, truthfully.
How else are you going to get through 9 hours a night in that bus?
Exactly. I mean, I didn't always do the right thing for my voice or for my body, but when you're that age, you bounce back.
Yeah, you
That's how
recover.
you learn,
You learn, and you have a much greater tolerance for abusing your body at that point, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, 19 is a big difference between that and 30. I mean, you start to have real consequences for that once you get just a hair older.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I just asked specifically about those things because watching like some of the like live rock performances you do, and just knowing that you're also a vocal teacher, you have like insane power that like a lot of vocalists don't have. Is that like difficult to maintain? Do you go through a lot of like pain in your voice, or has it gotten better over the years?
Thank God, no. I've never had pain.
Okay.
If you're feeling pain when you sing, I'll just say for everybody, all you vocalists out there, something's wrong.
So anything for Axl Rose you'd like to tell?
Yeah, no, thankfully, knock on wood, I've never had a vocal problem. I certainly have gotten sick on the road. Things have happened. But I think if you have good technique, you can kind of deal with it. You know how to deal with it.
I was telling Brad.
Yeah, I was just thinking about
we did one of the first gigs we did. You had a flu, and you could barely speak, literally.
Yeah.
And then the first tune was the Aretha Franklin, whatever it was, and I was
I remember.
literally in awe. I was like, "How is this happening?" Like I thought you were done for the night. You showed up, and you were. I don't even think you were whispering. You were not saying much.
Right.
And then you sang perfectly. So I remember asking you, and you talked a little bit about technique, but I didn't. To me, it doesn't make any sense that that's possible.
Yeah. Well, you get lucky sometimes too, right?
Well, it's also knowing how to use your voice. I suspect. Because I don't. So I sing in the car and the shower mostly. So I never had to really worry about this. But I remember that being. You were talking about. Is it you're using different parts of your voice when or the way you're? I don't know anything about the larynx and all of these things.
I mean, it really depends. Like I'm just getting over a cold now, but it depends on how whatever that illness is affecting your vocal folds. And I got lucky at that time. I remember it wasn't really affecting certain parts of my range.
Okay.
So I could kind of sing over it in a way, even though in the speaking range it was affecting my ability to speak. Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
it was
but
weird.
I remember that being that. I think that was in High Falls.
Yeah, Feloni's Funk, right?
Yes. And Roswell sat in with us that night.
I remember. Yeah.
That was a really fun night. Big crowd.
It was.
But when the music was over, you were back to not saying anything and packing up and going home. Such is the way, I guess.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a little bit off track of like.
Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. But
you answered the question fine. I just keep wanting to move on to another little umbrella, but just one last thing I want to touch on with like I guess your like early days of music. Would you say that besides your voice, your main instrument is a guitar, or what do you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't play like Matt here, like the maestro, But yeah, I started out as a singer-songwriter. So I started out in coffee houses, at 14, singing Joni Mitchell songs and, strumming on a 6-string guitar. That's how I started.
Yeah.
So, and that band Zazu Zaz, I was the rhythm guitar player. I wasn't just a singer. So it was an integral part of what I did with that group, and learning Freddie Green parts, and that was my thing.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I guess guitar is sort of my second instrument.
So is Freddie Green like an example of a guitarist who had a big influence on you, or has your taste in guitar, does it fall somewhere else that you kind of like to play like?
Yeah, at that time, that's what I had to do, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was into. Then I had, Matt knows, then I went through this whole Brazilian music phase, which I love Brazilian music. So I learned
when we first started playing, that's what your songs all seemed to be like deeply into in that Brazilian accompaniment that you were doing a lot of.
So I got into that, nylon style of that rhythm, playing, which is very specific to that genre.
Are you really into like Milton Nascimento?
Love him.
One of my favorite records of all time is Wayne Shorter, Native Dancer.
God, yeah, so beautiful.
His playing and singing on there.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
That's like one of my favorite records of all time. And I can't remember which song of yours I was listening to was making me think of that. Maybe it was something about the production of Heat. It reminded me of that, like the way Tarde, do you know that song on that album? Like the way the organs and like Rhodes are layered in that track. There's something about the production on one of those tracks made me think of that record, but I also didn't realize you were so into Brazilian stuff. I mean, do you sing in like Portuguese at all too, or?
I went through that whole phase of singing songs in Portuguese, but it's like I'm not a native speaker, and it's a difficult language. It's beautiful though. I love it. Yeah. I need another lifetime to like do all these things I want to do,
Yeah. I don't, I just like the titles when they get translated, because I have no idea what these words mean. And then it's really some very funny titles, but I don't speak the language either. So
yeah. But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think Tarde is like afternoons or something. I don't know.
or later maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Might meet later or late.
Yeah, I don't know. Those are tunes I like. Some of Milton Nascimento's tunes are ones I'd love to do. Like a arrangement of. But then it's like, would it sound the same in English or something? Like, would it translate well? Have you had to do that a lot for music? Have you like done any projects?
I think most of Jobim stuff has been translated, right?
I mean, the versions of them that except for the Stan Getz stuff, because isn't that in both? Did they do them in both?
They did both. Yeah. But they've all been translated, I think, to English.
So you never do it like yourself, like
No.
Okay. Well, not translating specifically, but I guess like, okay, so you get the translation and then it's like, oh, do I want to change this word? Like how did...
Oh, I see.
Like, I feel like when you translate something, you would have to change some of the words like phonetically just to make them work,
Make it work musically and poetically, right?
Yeah.
I mean... I don't have those qualifications.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing I was going to ask about, like Hiroshima, if you ever had to do that. Like, I don't know, how did you get the music for Hiroshima when you were, I guess, being presented?
Well, they're an American band.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah. I knew that, but they have a lot of Japanese members, right? And
it's Japanese American. Yeah.
Okay, so was there like really a strong connection to anything actually like?
Anything really Japanese, you mean?
I don't know exactly like at what point it was like, okay, like they're doing an homage to a lot of like Japanese traditional music and using the instruments, and there's people who have Japanese heritage in the band, but I wasn't really sure like, are you going over to Japan frequently with the band?
No, in fact, they weren't really popular at all in Japan, because they're a Japanese American group from Los Angeles. So they're writing as Westerners, really, even though they had a koto, I think they're still doing gigs, a koto player and a taiko player, which is the big drum, right? The taiko drum. But no, they're really like an American band.
And that's the string instrument that's played like a pedal steel.
Yeah,
that's
nylon.
what that's
koto.
Okay, because I looked it up and it started with an S. What I was looked up,
shamisen. Shamisen, you play like a guitar.
Oh, okay.
And it only has 3 strings, I think.
Okay, that makes sense.
4 strings, yeah.
Yeah, the layering of that Koto, is that what you said?
Koto.
In that context was amazing.
Yeah.
Because I watched, there's
nice.
a video. Oh, what was who was the 80s host, that show that you were on with that band?
Oh, that clip from Pat Sajak.
Thank goodness Pat Sajak wasn't in the actual clip, but
right.
that, I mean, when I was listening to that and the way it sounded live was pretty spectacular. I never would
cool.
expect that those things would mingle like that. It was pretty amazing.
It worked really well.
Yeah.
I mean, who was the big Japanese artist? I'm trying to...
Steven Seagal? Sorry.
That's funny.
Sorry, it's terrible.
There was a famous Japanese koto player or Japanese composer that became big in the jazz, sort of the jazz, pop, new age
that
jazz
I'm not sure.
scene. I can't think of it right now. But
Is this
anyway.
the 80s though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Going back. But then you have Ryuichi Sakamoto, who, as a composer, crossed over into the American scene. If you don't know his stuff, you should definitely check it out.
But I'll go back and write some names down at the end of this.
Beautiful. He wrote some beautiful stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, for film, and also his own records, and
Yeah, I used to be deep into a lot of like anime soundtracks, and there's some really great like jazz like composers who have done a lot of cool shows that I like, but also in particular like a lot of artists I like have done Japanese releases of their albums. Like I'm really big into Herbie Hancock and
of course
Paul Jackson.
They're world renowned. Yeah, definitely.
Do you, when it comes to Japanese like releases, are you like familiar with traditional Japanese music, like when it comes to doing music like what you did with Hiroshima or any similar project? Were you like going in and studying those things, and did you have to learn new like skill sets to be able to get the sounds that they were going for?
No.
Okay, like
I was just a singer, and it wasn't my band. You know, I was invited to be in that band, but I was really kind of a hired gun. I did one record with them on Epic Records.
That was East.
Yeah, I did one record with them and 3 years of touring, and then we parted ways. So so it wasn't really my group.
I knew it was like a temporary thing, but I wasn't sure if like the vocal style, I guess, of the Japanese influence they were going for was like a skill set, like
it wasn't really a skill set, but I did sort of have to acquiesce to the instruction or the guidance of the band leader. He wanted a certain sound or a certain way for me to approach singing songs.
Now, from the beginning, like I said, like in a lot of like the rock videos I've seen of you sing, you have a very powerful delivery, and you've worked in a lot of different styles. Was it easy for you to approach things like that early on? Did you have that like power behind your voice from a young age, or did it take a long time to kind of get to a point where you can sing with a rock band and like?
It's a really good question. When I got the gig with Pink Floyd, that was probably the biggest, loudest, rock band that I had to sing with. And that piece, Great Gig in the Sky, which is an iconic vocal piece.
And that's on your website. Is that from, I just meant, as long as you brought it up, was that from one of the dates, or is that something that's just a clip from?
That was a clip from a live performance.
It was pretty spectacular.
Thank you.
It was pretty. I don't know if I had ever checked. I know we talked about you doing this gig, but when I listened to it, so you have like a 40-second clip on your reel. Did you check that out?
I think 40 seconds. I listened to.
There's
I think just the full song on YouTube.
Thing? Yeah, there's 3 girls that we split up the piece, which was originally sung by Claire Torrey on the Dark Side of the Moon record, and Claire was a session singer in London. For people that don't know the story, she was called in to do this session. Richard Wright, who was the keyboard player for Pink Floyd, he wrote this piece, basically, but it had no melody and no words. So they invited Claire to come in and said, well, just have your way with it and see what happens. So it's really an improvisation.
Wow.
That Claire wrote. And by the way, I think in 2014, there was a lawsuit, and Claire Torrey finally got her just desserts of getting writing credit on that piece.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So then that must have equaled some monetary compensation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which she so deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible.
But all those years, it was not. She was not credited.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, it was sung by one person on the record, but obviously as a singer, we all wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So David Gilmour said, well, just split it up and figure it out,
Fight amongst yourselves.
Yeah, fight amongst yourselves.
he wasn't getting in the middle of that.
He was very cool. We worked it out.
You said that, and he's kind of known for being I'd never heard anything other than he is very cool.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
He's such a gentleman and just sweet guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I was referring to is on her website, there's maybe 12 or so different clips. If you just hit play on the first one, it'll go through all of them, and they're different jingles she's done and then that comes on, and it just sounds like it's from a stadium somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I'd never heard that particular part of it. I didn't listen to the whole thing on YouTube, so I don't know which one you're talking about. Was it the Delicate Sound of Thunder tour? Was it that, like, what you saw?
That's out there. It's
Okay.
on YouTube. Yeah. Might have been
Not
something
important.
else.
I
couldn't remember the name of the song. I know a little
okay.
bit of Pink Floyd's discography from when I was like young. My brothers used to be way into it. So like some of the first stuff I was hearing as a kid was a lot of that. But there's a lot of the records I'm not like as familiar with.
Yeah, there's one, the Donald Trump's favorite one, The Wall.
That's actually like more of what I know is The Wall.
Yeah,
Wall.
just moving on. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So how did you how did the gig like come together? How did you end up meeting them?
Oh, yeah, and I forgot. I don't think I answered your question, but let me go back and then I'll tell you how I got the gig. But anyway, so because that song, Great Gig in the Sky, is such a demanding vocal piece, and to do that for 300 shows in a year, that's a lot vocally. And I had studied classical technique when I was younger. And classical technique does not prepare you for making those kinds of sounds, that you need to be able to do for pop rock stuff. Mm-hmm. And as singers, when I talk about this a lot, obviously, with my students, but, as this instrument, like any instrument, is about tuning harmonics. Mm-hmm. So we're tuning harmonics in a particular way with the use of the tongue, the mouth, jaw position, things like that. So I actually had to figure out on my own how to get the kind of sound I needed to sing that song, and also sing with the kind of edge and power that I needed to do that gig. And I kind of had already gotten into that because I toured with Patti Benatar. So I'm leading up to the answer to your next question. I toured with Pat Benatar just before that. So, I'm missing the chronology. So I was actually with George Benson just before Pink Floyd, and I was with Patti before that. But during Patti's gig, that's also a rock gig.
Yeah.
And Patti, too, she had studied vocals at Juilliard, so she was classically trained, and she figured out how to get that edgy rock sound, too.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she went to Juilliard.
Wow.
She was like serious voice major. Yeah. So I had already been sort of working on changing my technique and my sound and everything on that gig. And then I did the tour with George, and then when Pink Floyd hit, I had to really kick it up,
Yeah, I couldn't think of two more divergent. I saw the stuff with George,
Oh, yeah.
Moody's Mood, right?
Oh, yeah, I posted that one, yeah.
Beautiful. And then when I think of that into Floyd, I didn't realize they were so close together. But when I think about the way you sounded on it sounds like two completely different ways of using your instrument.
Yeah, it was. I had to, right? You have to, and again, I try to teach this to my students is, depending on the material that you're doing, you want to try to figure out, obviously within the limits of your instrument, right? As singers, we're born with a sound. You can't change it. I'd love to sound like Tina Turner, but I'm never going to sound like Tina Turner. But yeah, you want to be able to accommodate the tonal qualities that you want to get for whatever material you're doing.
So if you want to work... Well, I mean, we talk about this. You have students, I have students. You're constantly... you just have to be able to cover a lot of different territory.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same for you as a guitar player. If you're doing a jazz gig, you're probably going to play a hollow body guitar. You're going to have warmer tonalities, right? You're approaching music in a different way.
Yeah.
If you're doing a rock gig, you're probably going to play a solid body guitar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have maybe some distortion boxes, or, you're going to approach the sound differently.
Yeah. But I never had to do two completely different things on the world stage. Like you're going from one, you're doing it for thousands of people. And was Benson right into Floyd? Was there any break, or were you just literally, you got on the plane and off of one tour?
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's amazing. I didn't realize you were doing that on the, and how long were you out with Floyd?
A year.
Like so you literally did close to 300 dates. Man.
Yeah.
So was, like you said, you kind of had to take it up a notch vocally for that. Was that like, were you learning a lot of things about your own voice from doing that music in particular? Like, was there anything you got out of doing that tour that really stuck with you, like into your work after?
Yeah, I think I learned that I had more potential than I knew. That I had to figure out how to step it up. And I'm sure you guys talk about this too. It's always better to be with people that are better than you.
Always.
Because it pulls up your game, right? You have to work harder, but you figure it out. And
that discomfort is what makes you
better.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the pressure's on, you either sink or swim.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you hope to swim. Yeah. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So I think I made it. I think I swam.
I think you swam.
Yeah, you were like, oh, I got to push myself harder, talking about the gig you got after your gig with George Benson. but yeah, I mean, I guess that's the attitude you got to have. So I mean, I don't know. It's such a cool career. Is there anyone in particular who was made you the most nervous? Like made you feel like you had to do the most work just to work to the standard that was required? Like where did you feel the most pressure?
I'll have to be very delicate about how I talk about this, but yeah, I would say Sting was probably the hardest gig.
As far as being the demands that you had to meet?
I think mentally it was like walking on eggshells all the time. It's a very high pressure gig. And look, he's an amazing rock star.
Yeah.
He is a rock star.
Yeah, he is.
And he's been a rock star since his 20s.
Yep.
With the Police.
Yep.
So right there, you're walking into a situation of a very high level, just super high level situation and politics, a lot of politics. And I think it also had to do with the timing of that gig in my life. This was 1999, 2000. I had already put a lot of years in being on the road. I had gone through a divorce. I had just met Danny when I got that gig. I really didn't want to go on the road, but I needed to make money, and it was a good gig. Mm-hmm. And I took the gig. But part of me didn't want to be on the road anymore. And So there I'm in this really high pressure situation. And it was a tough situation mentally and emotionally than it was musically. Musically, I was fine, and especially given the fact that I had 2 weeks to get the material together with the other singer, and there was not going to be any rehearsal, and that the first gig was on international television, an international broadcast for New Year's Eve, 1999, going into the Millennium New Year's, right?
Yep.
And all we had was sound check to go over the tunes.
I didn't realize that was the first gig.
Yeah,
That was the first gig of that tour that I did.
Oh my God.
So that was intense.
The
But
track sounds amazing. I mean, I only checked out the one. I guess, is there a whole show from that? Or?
I don't know if it's available online.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched it, Every Little Thing one, and the band sounds amazing.
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys sound incredible.
Yeah, the band had already been touring.
Well, I was including you and the other singer, and the whole thing sounds amazing.
Yeah, the band's amazing. But to be truthful, the band had already been touring since September before.
Yeah, so they were comfy.
Luckily, because that I think would have been worse.
All y'all felt that way? Yeah, that'd be rough. Yeah.
But it was pretty intense. But it went really well. And so anyway, just to not get into too much craziness detail about that story, wait for the book. More to be revealed.
Hoping this wasn't another Trailways bus where you had 2 seats to yourself.
No, God, no. Luckily, that was 5-star hotels and private jets, and
nice.
Yeah.
So you were flying
cushy.
Around very nicely.
Pretty cushy. Yeah. It was nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, the Y2K performance is plenty of explanation for how that could have been extremely stressful. And like I said, I don't know. You're a badass. These are such cool gigs to hear about.
And I do have a question about the Benson one. I don't know
where you were. Yeah.
So I don't know if I heard. I don't think I heard this from you. But when you were hired to do that, were you also hired as a percussionist?
Yep.
But did you have a whole lot of percussion under your belt?
Nope.
Okay. So when you you should lie.
This is called fake it till you make it.
Well, because I was watching the Moody's Mood, and I saw you back there, right? You're playing at some point you're playing a tambourine, right, and something else, and then you come out and sing. You're wearing some pretty high heels. I don't know how you were even able to walk, but that's something probably. I just can't. All the demands that are on you vocally, and you had to come out and dance a little bit, like kind of like.
Bruno Mars?
No, but sort of like the Michael Jackson, the way you make me feel video. Is that what that's where you're kind of you're dancing and he's chasing you, not chasing you, but
you're interacting.
You're interacting as part of the song.
Entertaining, actually. Yeah.
And when I watched it, I saw you go back behind like a whole percussion rig, and I was like, wait a minute, didn't I hear that you were not necessarily a working percussionist before taking that gig?
No. So Vicki Randall had the gig before me.
Okay.
And she left to do, I think, The Tonight Show or some big TV gig, right? Steady gig.
Yeah.
So when I got called, and I don't even remember now how I got the gig. Somebody called me for the gig, and they said, "Oh, but you have to play percussion." So I said, "Oh, okay." And I had faith in myself as far as having time, right? You gotta have rhythm to play percussion.
Yeah. Something tells me there was more than an egg shaker as part of your rig for this.
Exactly.
Though. Yeah.
So I was living in LA at the time, so I said, okay, I got 2 weeks to get this together. So I called up this great percussionist, Mike Fisher in LA, and I took a lesson. And I said, okay, I need to get through this gig. Show me some basic stuff that I can work on so I can do this. And that was kind of it. I practiced. I had some congas, timbales, and some toys, some hand toys, and I just figured it out.
Were you
and
scared?
again, I had no rehearsal. It was just, we're going to Europe. Here's the schedule. Here, here's your ticket, and here we go.
Any charts?
Nope.
Just sent you tracks.
Sent me tracks. It's the 80s. You got a cassette tape.
That's right.
Not
an 8-track.
Yeah,
it was a cassette
tape. And here's your vocal tunes, and you can figure out whatever you want to do with the percussion. And so I kind of just faked it. Well, I know, it's crazy.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
So how long did you spend on the percussion gig, and did you how into the percussion were you? Did you love playing
it? I loved it. It was fantastic. It was so much fun. Just grooving back there with the drummer, and
it's a pretty groovy gig.
Yeah,
I mean, those two, the stuff that you're with George, he's not even holding a guitar. So I mean, when he's singing like that, I mean, there's all those tunes that he sings like that are amazing.
Yeah,
got some nice pocket.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it was a great band. And Stanley Banks, who
still doing the gig.
Is still doing the gig after like 40 years or something,
Amazing.
And who's the sweetest guy. I'm still in touch with him occasionally,
That's beautiful.
I know.
Yeah, he's got one of the longest gigs I've ever seen. He's in every video for the last I didn't realize it was 40 plus years.
Oh, God, yeah. And honestly, if I hadn't left, I think George is such a loyal guy. I probably could still have that gig if I'd stayed, just because he's such a nice guy. And Stanley's been there forever. And if you're doing your job, I think George is pretty loyal.
That makes sense. I've been to some of those shows. I've hung out with him a couple times, just as luck would have it. And it seems like everybody's very happy in that band. I don't know what it's like, but he's very, very relaxed. Like, I don't know.
Very cool.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen somebody that relaxed backstage 3 minutes before they're about to go on.
Really?
Yeah. It's really, and the whole environment feels that way.
Yeah, no, I remember that gig as being really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus he's a genius. Like, when
talk about badass.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Talk about being in, like, there's nothing to worry about when you're going to get everything you need from him.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in many ways I wish I'd have stayed, because I think I'd learn a lot, maybe got a few guitar lessons.
Yeah, that's the one you want teaching you.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, exactly. But, at that time I was young, and,
that was world tour. We were pretty much out for a while, right? I mean, he's been doing it.
I did 6 months with him,
okay.
And then I got the call from, because I had done Pat Benatar, the sound engineer, the front of house sound guy, ended up doing the Pink Floyd tour. Oh. And he's the one that recommended me for the Floyd tour. So that's how that happened, So it's all about networking.
And probably getting along with people, I suspect.
Yeah. That helps. That helps.
Yeah.
So I guess one last thing on the percussion. Do you have a particular favorite percussion instrument or percussion player or percussion recording?
Percussion player. Oh, wow. Well, Mino Sinelli is a friend of mine. He's a badass. In fact, I think he was playing in New York this week with Marcus Miller, and it's basically
awesome.
the Miles Electric Band.
Oh, wow.
And they were doing the Blue Note this week. Yeah.
Would Mike Stern be on that?
I think he was either sitting in or he was doing it, and Bill Evans, and I forgot the keyboard player that was in the Electric Band. Was it Adam?
No, that I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember. Anyway, Mina was doing that.
I mean, if it wasn't Chick or Herbie, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Oh, the Electric Band, though.
The Electric Band,
right.
that's later. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
And who's playing bass in that?
Marcus Miller.
Oh, it is Marcus. Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry, you said that.
Yeah. So Mina's,
We'll edit that out.
Mina's great.
That's awesome. I've been meaning to go see him with Scott Petito.
Oh, yeah.
I just booked some with Scott. Scott's going to bring a band to my hometown, Greenville, and I think Mino's going, so I really am hoping to see that. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to know about that.
Yeah, it's this place, the Tasting Lab in Greenville. Cool. Great little bar.
I don't even know where Greenville is.
To which we have a gig at the Tasting Lab. When is that coming up? We might as well pitch that one now.
That's
There
right.
you go.
That's, what was the date? May
something.
Okay.
My phone's charging over there. But yeah, we do have a gig coming up there, me, Matt, and Mike Nappy.
Yeah.
So that's coming up soon. But I'm hoping to catch Mino there because
cool.
I've seen lots of cool videos, but never seen him
He's
live.
great. He's amazing.
That's cool. I didn't realize Scott was coming there. That's excellent.
Yeah. I talked to him about that recently.
Excellent.
We
We like to call that the Mink and the Monk bump.
Oh, I like
show.
that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then you get hired at a bar in the middle of nowhere. It's
$40 and a
place.
good meal. Really, it's just like the Benson tour.
Hey, a gig is a gig. It's a,
I'm only kidding.
you
It actually
know.
pays much better. I was just kidding.
All right. So before we move on for percussion, favorite percussion instrument? What's
Oh God.
What's the one? If you had to
Rocking
play,
that tambourine back there on the Benson tour.
I like the tambourine.
Yeah.
Hey, even Chris Rock says sometimes you got to play the tambourine.
yeah. It's true. Whatever you're doing on the stage, do it. It's true. That is very true.
I love percussion though. Yeah,
yeah.
it's fun.
I think me personally, the cuica might be
Yeah.
my favorite. I love
Those are great.
The End of Spider by Herbie Hancock.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. It's not. I don't think it's Bill Summers, but there's an awesome cuica break. I think you play it like this. I don't even know how you play it. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
know, but
totally. We have one at home. Danny and I got one in Brazil when we were
so
there.
cool.
Yeah, they're very cool.
Wow.
What's your favorite percussion instrument? man?
Watching you do that. Yeah. Tell if
I
you're-
can come do this at shows.
For giving an infant a colonoscopy. I don't know what you're doing over there, but it's pretty good. That's a very,
Washing his underarm,
Yeah.
something.
I like your example.
You didn't like mine? No. Different image.
No,
Yeah,
I think my
very.
technique for that is much better.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh God.
What else?
Cuicas are cool. That's all I'm saying. Okay, well, I don't know. How deep are we into the show?
I think we're about an hour in.
Okay, well, let us know if we need to wrap up at any point, but I still have more
Yeah,
that I'd
fire away.
love
Yeah.
to hear about. As we definitely have talked a lot already about, being a vocalist and teaching vocals, but like what are some examples of things you like commonly see people messing up or doing to damage their voice?
Oh. The list is too long. The list is very long. I think one of the biggest challenges is with a lot of young singers, they are mimicking singers that they've heard, right? So young, and maybe this is true with other instruments too. So, but maybe this is particular to voice.
Well,
where,
because if you dam it, you really, you can damage, I guess, for guitar, but not like you can with voice. You can irreparably really harm yourself.
Yeah, so I hear a lot of young singers coming in, singing with a lot of tension, a lot of physical tension, which it's so complex with the voice, because there's so many little muscles involved in learning how to free up so that you're not standing in the way of your instrument being able to function freely. But I think that's the biggest challenge is when kids come in and they've tried to sound exactly like John Mayer in his earlier career. By the way, he's had a lot of serious issues, with his voice. He almost lost his voice completely.
Because of improper technique?
Well, I can't say that. It was directly, but I believe it was. But he developed a granuloma, which is it looks like a big cyst on your vocal fold, and he had to have it surgically removed. And it started to come back, and, he had some real problems.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. And so I hear him now, and it sounds like to me he's had some instruction because he's changed his technique a little bit.
I just follow who he dates. I don't.
Oh, that's much more interesting, I think, than
I'm just
what
trying
I'm
to date
talking
him.
about.
He's so dreamy.
He is dreamy. Yeah.
He is dreamy. He's a good songwriter, too.
Brilliant songwriter. Yeah.
What about Adele? Isn't she also like another culprit?
Adele had a couple surgeries. She had a couple vocal bleeds, what vocal hemorrhages are called, and
I didn't know that either.
Oh, yeah. Sam Smith, Meghan Trainor. There's so many young singers that are having serious issues. Yeah.
And with someone like Adele, just seems like she's has such a pure voice. I wouldn't think of anything about her being improper, but I'm not a singer, obviously. So
I mean, this is where you get into the minutia of vocal technique, and she has a great sound, obviously a beautiful, natural sound to her instrument. But there were things she was doing that definitely put a strain on her instrument. And as far as I know, she also was a smoker. That's not recommended.
But strains in general sounds like they manifest in different ways. So a vocal bleed is one way, and then...
A vocal bleed is when the very tiny little capillaries in the vocal folds themselves actually burst.
Oh.
And that can come from too much high velocity singing, right? A lot of strain. It could come from, by the way, all singers should know this, when you take ibuprofen, like Advil, it's a blood thinner.
Yep.
So if you're taking Advil and you're singing, doing a whole concert, or you have a lot of singing to do, you're in danger of bursting a blood vessel. What is it?
Acetaminophen. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a percussionist from the 80s. Sorry.
Say that 10 times fast. Acetaminophen.
After Brad's technique, you definitely need some acetaminophen after that.
God, that's better to take if you've got a hangover or headache. Or
I didn't realize.
Cuica elbow.
Or Cuica elbow. Exactly.
Yeah, what I've always been, I think about how hard it like, as far as the instruments are concerned to play, it seems like trumpet is the most difficult as far as maintaining.
Oh God! Yeah.
But the voice, like,
that's hard.
I could never. I'm so glad that I enjoyed guitar as a young age and that I had no singing ability whatsoever, because I don't have the discipline to get through a day without doing something bad in general. But with the voice, there is you have to really maintain your whole lifestyle around. It's got to be exhausting.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it is. And, now, because I'm doing so much teaching and I talk all day long, I have to really watch how I'm placing my voice. I have to make sure I'm breathing in a supportive way.
Yeah.
And,
and that you don't drink, like you probably don't. I offered you coffee and you had water, so I'm suspecting like there's certain things that you just stay away from, in like caffeine and that sort of thing.
I mean, I'd have coffee every day.
Okay.
I love coffee, but I only have 1 cup in the morning. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
I have 1 cup in the morning as well.
And it lasts all day long.
I have 3 in the afternoon and 2 in the evening. Yeah.
Yeah, I have so many.
Yeah. It never.
Buying too many white shirts.
Yeah.
That's where I wear black.
Yeah. It just seems that with that though, with the voice, there's so much that you have to do to protect what you're, not only just the singing, the rest of your day has to go in support of your career.
Yeah, and that's why I tell all my students, look, if this is what you're going to do for a living, I mean, I'm not on the road anymore. I'm not out there hustling gigs like I did in my 20s and 30s. But it has to be your lifestyle. You have to think like a professional athlete. You have to really protect your body and your voice.
Yeah.
Because if that's how you're making your money, that's,
everything from enough sleep and good diet.
Sleeping, diet, stress. I mean, all of it,
Yeah.
And, look, let's face it, if you're a young singer that gets a gig on the road and you start touring, whether it's as a background vocalist or your career starts to take off, you're going to have so many demands on you, with travel, sleeping in a different bed all the time. Maybe you're doing radio promotion. If you're an up-and-coming artist, you're going to be talking all the time. You're going to be singing all the time. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds it.
And it really does take a lot of vigilance, to keep it together.
Yeah, and I suspect disciplined is in general.
It's a big word.
Yeah.
It's a big word that a lot of people don't get, but
No, well, it's also something you have to develop through just doing that. But there's no way I could do it. There's no way.
Good thing you're a guitar player.
Yeah, totally. No, really. Like, there's no physical way I could ever hang in that world. Nope, you got to be a certain type.
Yeah, you do.
And I'm not it.
You're more of a rapper, Matt.
It's like the difference between being a brain surgeon and a general practitioner, right?
I feel more confident that I could probably get brain surgery together as opposed to singing. Like, I really think I could at least get in the brain. Maybe not sew it back up properly.
Yeah, your
but
fingers are already. You probably got some good dexterity going already.
And for all the caffeine I've had, I'm pretty steady.
Yeah, you are pretty steady.
Yeah. I wouldn't
That's
have.
impressive.
Yeah.
You're probably steadier than me. I don't know.
yeah. It doesn't. I'll cut you open after the show.
Listen, you get all up in the medulla, and you just think B flat 7, man. I'm sure it'll work itself
I'll put it
out.
right. Yeah, we can do this. I bet you didn't know we were going there today.
No,
You had no idea. I'm sorry. You're regretting this every moment moving forward.
So with vocalists that you work with a lot of the time, do you see anything that's like a big like obstacle to people kind of finding their voice and getting comfortable in their, like, as a singer? Like, what do you feel like makes a difference in like people just getting comfortable with what they're working with?
I think the point that I brought up before of, and this is probably true for musicians too, I think the hardest thing is to find your own sound, to find your own voice, to not get caught up in trying to copy other singers. Oh, I want to sound like Adele, or I want to sound like, Ariana Grande, I mean, why? Because they've done that already.
Yeah.
Do your thing,
Well, what's amazing about Ariana Grande is hearing her do anybody else. Like, you hear her do herself, and then you hear her do, like, did you ever catch the SNL bit she does?
No.
Where the satellite radio breaks down and she has to do, she's like in the office as an intern. They're like, we're about to lose the Aretha Franklin channel, or we're about to lose the Christina Aguilera channel, and then she just sings like them.
Oh, wow.
It's absolutely astounding to hear her do it. Like, you've never seen her do?
No.
Oh, I mean, she does Celine Dion. She does, and it's incredible. I mean, it's also hilarious because she has some of the things that the expressions or phrases that these different people use.
That's cool.
But I think she does Christina on there. I think she does Adele. But she does them. You're like, holy cow!
That's pretty good.
Her level of what she understands is really incredible.
That's pretty cool.
So it's hard not to want to sound. Who doesn't want to sound like anybody who's doing a magnificent job at what they're doing?
Yeah, no, I get it. But you want to find yourself.
Ultimately,
right? As an artist, you want to figure out who you are.
Yeah, probably for the simple reason that someone else can already do, and all the people buying those tickets they don't want to see you do it.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, do you mostly have like just vocalists coming to you for help, or do you have like rappers come to you, say like, how do I?
I've had some rappers. Yeah, absolutely, and also just musicians that want to work on their voices, and and plus I teach at NYU in the New School, so that's a pretty broad population. So lots of different singers and musicians, you know. Like, I've been recently working with a drummer who's in a band, and he just wanted to improve his voice so he could do background vocals, and that's a trip, because you think about drummers are constantly moving every part of their body, and then to sing as well, it's trippy, actually.
It is. Yeah, it's a different part. That's a different aspect of it.
Yeah.
Watching drummers do that.
Yeah.
Now, I do this and a little bit of radio, and I feel like that's not very taxing on the voice. I mean, I talk for an hour or two maybe at a time sometimes. I'm also a year into doing stand-up comedy, which at this point is very like 5-10 minutes at a time, just because I'm still new and I'm getting my reps in. But as I go forward and I have to talk to more people, or if I have to talk for longer periods of time, like, what do I need to look out for in public speaking to like make sure I'm not like falling into bad habits right off the bat? Well,
I think the fundamentals, like with everything, the fundamentals are really important. So watch your breathing. How are you breathing? Are you breathing
the nose?
Are you breathing diaphragmatically or thoracically?
Is that Japanese? I know my stomach should go out. My chest should go like out this way.
You know what the diaphragm is, right?
Yeah.
So when you breathe, do you feel that sense of expansion in the lower part of your torso?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Like I try to like push out like this. I've taken some vocal lessons where that was kind of the focus.
There you
but like
go.
I'm not.
Good.
I don't have like, especially for speaking, I don't have like a deep sense of like what this should feel like or.
Well, I mean, when you take a breath, it should feel expansive and relaxed. So it shouldn't feel like you're pushing your belly out. It should feel like you're letting it release. Okay. And the diaphragm's dropping down. And the reason why you feel that sort of your belly pushing out in a way is because the diaphragm is displacing organs in your body that are pushing out of the way, and the floating ribs are expanding the chest cavity, right? Yeah. So anyway, I could talk about this stuff forever, you know.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I'm like, the breathing thing, I think I've made a little bit of progress just in thinking about how I should be doing it and, you know, trying to be conscious of it. But
good.
I still definitely have a lot to work on there. And it's good to hear.
But sounds like you're on the right track, which is great. And then the way that you're kind of focusing the sensation of the resonance of your voice, which we call placement. So placement is how you're focusing the feeling sort of forward into, I'm sure everybody's heard this term, the mask, right? This part of the face is called the maxilla. So we want to sort of direct the feeling forward. So if I were talking like this, like way down here, that would really be putting a lot of strain on my larynx.
But it's so hot.
I should start talking like that. Well, I'm also like interested in voice acting and like I guess the idea of being able to like change your voice to something like that almost sounds like a character. Like, like
well,
what do you do?
That's a whole other ball game. If you're a character actor or a voice actor, you're using your instrument in a lot of different ways, right? But getting back to neutral or normal or healthy, these are like principles that you want to implement.
So it's proper to be talking
here
up front, like, but is that separate from, you know, like, okay, I've heard rappers talk about the difference between someone like, I don't know, do you know like Slick Rick? Or,
no.
I'm trying to think of a good example, like rappers who talk very like nasally and up front, and then rappers who have like a much deeper like delivery that's, I guess, like what, chest voice? I don't know what the difference is. Are those both acceptable? Like, is okay.
Well, and it depends on your natural vocal range, right? We're born with, you know, I just ended up a high soprano. I can't change that because it has to do with the size of the vocal folds, the thickness of the vocal folds, the length of the vocal tract. You know, if you think of it like the difference between a baritone sax and a soprano sax, right?
Size and
the length of the pipe, right? That is going to affect the tone and the range.
So giraffes would have very deep voices.
Maybe. Well, their heads are small though, right? The necks are long. But the heads are small.
It's true, though. People with bigger mouths have a different sound altogether than people with, you know, smaller openings. Or at least it seems that way.
Yeah, and then it depends on the bone structure, like where the hard palate is sitting, right? You know, everybody's got a different structure.
So more importantly, what's Al Pacino doing wrong? I mean, what's going on with it? I mean, we might as well. We're getting to the bottom of it. What?
Al Pacino. Did you see that? Did you see him on the Oscars when he made a cameo?
No. Did the Oscars air this year?
Are we gonna go back?
Sorry. Did something happen?
He made a cameo with Robert De Niro and Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh no, I didn't.
Because Francis Ford Coppola got like a lifetime award or something, you know, which he should get.
Probably deserved it.
Yeah, totally. But I was like, I'm sorry, I love Al Pacino, but I was shocked at how much older he looked. You know.
Did you? Yeah.
I mean, we're all getting older. I'm getting old too, but I was like, oh, Al.
Yeah, I didn't. How did his voice sound? Did he still sound like a Southern gentleman, or is he
No.
is it morphing into something else now?
He sounds like a New Yorker to me. You know.
Yeah.
Him and Robert, they're New Yorkers, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just. I'm figuring he's doing something wrong. Is all I'm guessing.
No, I don't think you can do anything wrong.
You're right. Absolutely right.
I wish I could even like talk about what he's done right and wrong. I only know like Scarface. I haven't even
my
seen like
God.
Man hasn't
Serpico.
seen. Yeah, he hasn't seen The Godfather yet.
You need to. You must.
Yeah.
I know.
It's required.
I love those kind of movies, but it's one of the ones I haven't
But
gotten
his
around
voice-
They're
to.
classic.
And Pacino's voice is astoundingly like if you don't know that age that and Dog Day Afternoon like his
Oh, yeah.
it's very much it's a little more right a little more nasally
Yeah.
and a little like completely different. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's from smoking or if it's just how
How
things.
he's placing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could
Yeah, but
be.
you need to
Get Al on here. You need to get him on your show.
Well, after you said he looked old.
Well, he's getting older. We're all getting older. It's like, you know, but he's got a little pot belly and stuff now.
He might, when he wants the Mink and the Monk bump, we'll give him a call. Let's see if he wants. We'll wait for him to call us.
Yeah. He'll follow our Instagrammers.
Yeah. So just touching on one last thing then, I guess, or I don't know if you were wrapping this up, but you were talking about how to find yourself in your personal approach to how you work on your craft. Every one of those tours help you do that, or did you know early on that what you wanted to be able to do, or were you meeting the demands and the expectations and evolving stylistically?
Yeah.
Because of that.
It's a really good question. And I think
Was it a better question than Brad's earlier? I just want to make sure.
I'll write it in my review. I'll give you my give you my answers in the review.
Good.
My Google review of that.
Yeah, I'll look for it.
Matt was great. Brad seemed a little off.
Please go on.
You know, I think honestly, I haven't really found my voice. I'm still working on it.
Okay.
Because I think when you're a background singer, you're a session singer, which I was a lot. You do the job.
You do the job.
You know, you have to, follow instructions of the producer of the spot, or, you adjust, right, for the gig. And, you kind of become a chameleon in a way. So, which is a skill,
Sure.
It's definitely a skill.
Absolutely.
To be able to step into a situation and know what the gig requires and deliver it to the best of your ability. But I really kind of think in my old age here, I'm going to finally find my voice, my artistic voice, if you will.
Okay. As a
Yeah.
solo artist, you mean?
Maybe, yeah.
As a songwriter.
Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of in this process of going back to old songs that have never been released and wanting to put material out there, and just, I don't really care what happens. I'm just going to put stuff out, and because I want those songs to be out in the world and have a voice. And I think through this process that I'm on now, like I'm releasing another song in a couple weeks, and I'm just going to keep putting stuff out like maybe once a month.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to try. That's
Yeah.
my goal. But I think through that process, sitting at home, working on Logic and just trying to produce stuff and singing, which is kind of hard to do by yourself, actually. I find it difficult to produce myself, like do my own vocals at home. And it would be so much better to work with a producer, I think, because I think that feedback from someone else is so valuable.
Yeah.
Because it's hard sometimes to really be objective with yourself.
I never can be with myself. It's like it's.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the constant struggle. I mean, it's like part of, I guess, like finding your voice and being like, yes, that's what I want to get. But even then, I feel like it's never ending. I feel like you're always like,
it is never ending.
I don't know, picking yourself apart.
Because we could be so critical, like overly critical of ourselves, but at the same time, you know, when you think you're trying to make it better, sometimes you're actually squashing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you need perspective.
Yeah.
And when you're inside of it, it's probably impossible. And you don't know what people are going to like either once you put something out. You know, you just have no idea.
I'm not worried about that so much. I'm more concerned about the creative process and how do I get the best sound, or how do I get the best expression or performance of a particular thing I'm working on. And that's what I mean. It's like really hard to do that by yourself. Yeah. So that's, I think, my biggest challenge right now.
So with 40 plus years of experience, traveling the world multiple times, you're still right back at square one trying to figure out what, I mean, it says a lot though.
It's never ending.
It's never ending. Thank goodness though.
Yeah.
In some degrees.
Totally.
In some aspects rather, I mean.
Yeah, and I think that's the fun of being in music or any kind of creative process, is that it's a lifelong journey. You know, I mean, I did all the stuff I've done. You know, I'm very grateful that I've had these amazing opportunities, and I traveled the world and, you know, did all this cool stuff. But I'm still here. I'm still alive. Yeah. I'm still working on, you know, improving myself and wanting to continue being creative and making music. And even if I'm not gigging, or I'm not looking to do tours anymore, you know, that's not my thing now, but I want to still be able to speak to that part of myself, and I want to bring that to my students too. You know, I want them to know that I know what you're going through. Yeah. I know what you're dealing with, you know.
Yeah. That's an absolute necessity if you're going to teach people. I mean, you have to have been down that path in some way in order to be able to express to them what to expect and how to handle these pitfalls that are these seemingly on every step. There's a place where a misstep that could absolutely happen, and how to deal with that or avoid it. But your experiences are invaluable in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the difference between teaching in the performing arts as opposed to teaching math or, you know, something.
It's entirely subjective.
Yeah. And also the performing arts, you have to have experience doing that. It's not a book thing, right? Yeah. Maybe you can learn a lot in a book, but ultimately you have to know what it's like to actually stand in front of an audience and perform.
And also what you touched on earlier, which was where certain techniques will not give you what you need to, or prepare you for what you need, whereas other things will. Like I teach in a university as well. There's two different schools of thought, or at least I would say, but there's certain parts of classical technique that weren't going to help you at all on the George Benson gig, or on the Sting gig, or on the Bobby Caldwell gig, or any of those. Like I'm sure technical things are important, but there was other things that you weren't going to get from that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, I mean, it is a crazy industry to be working in and teaching in. When it comes to like what the industry was like when you were first starting to gig and how it is today, what do you feel like has gotten better, and what do you feel like has gotten worse?
It's such a hard question to answer, honestly, because in so many ways, I think it was easier when I was up and coming. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Spotify and Pandora, you know, all this, you know, online social media stuff. You had to do gigs. You went out there, you played, you maybe got lucky and got discovered by somebody at a record label, or you built up your career simply by being out there and doing it.
For better or worse, there was no record of each gig that was going to be seen by anybody.
That too. Yeah.
So that pressure is very different.
Oh, totally. Because every move you make now, look, we're on camera now. Yeah. My God. Yeah.
But luckily, only about 44 people are going to see this one, so I don't think you have to worry about much.
Hi, Mom.
Like 44.
Hi, Danny.
45. Right. It's true though.
Yeah.
The idea. I mean, the idea of the phone camera has ruined. I mean, now at comedy shows, they just take them from you because so much of what's in the moment is.
Oh, really? Is that true?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Big touring acts.
Oh, I don't know. I have a lot of people trying to bootleg my tight five.
But like, I've been to Chappelle, I've been to Chris Rock. They take your phone before you can't even get. Oh yeah, it goes in a sealed bag, and you have to get it unsealed. Yeah, because they're working out their act, and they're also saying things that are meant to be seen by people who have agreed to see that in that setting.
Right.
And for the people that would like to cancel them, if they're not paying for the ticket, they don't deserve to hear it. And but also the tours, you're working through your set.
Yeah.
There's mistakes.
Yeah.
You don't need to have them dissected. And
God, they should do that at music concerts.
they absolutely should. Yeah.
I didn't know they did that. It
might be harder on that scale if you're playing for 70,000 people at Giant Stadium.
Well, they probably do it in Giant Stadium comedy shows too. But
Really?
I mean, I
I
feel
don't
like
know who's doing the state. I mean, indoor stadiums, yes. I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know what they're
Arenas,
doing at
Yeah.
open air arenas. Yeah.
I mean, people still find ways to get it in, but
Yeah,
I feel
they
like
do.
in comedy, it's a little less permanent than music because you can play the hits for years. But like once people have heard the
You
joke,
ruin the
it's-
punchline.
Yeah, and it's so hard being recorded when you're working something out. Because if I get up there to tell one of my dumb jokes, like that, I have like if I have
For example,
like
I'd like to hear one.
you want,
don't encourage.
Don't encourage.
oh my god, I don't know if you do.
You have any clean jokes?
Clean, yeah, I got some clean, but I don't shy away from like saying ridiculous, like offensive stuff. Just if it structurally works like a joke, I like guys like Dave Attell, and I like saying absurd things. But sometimes, like if I haven't told the joke in a while, the gears are turning, and I might forget a little thing in the joke that is like me acknowledging in the joke, like I'm saying something messed up. So I'm just gonna say in the joke right now, like I'm kidding, like I don't. This isn't like a opinion of mine,
right?
Because most people that see me at the open mics are just like, a lot of them are the comedians who are there, and they get that I'm just trying to structure a joke together of certain things. Whereas if someone just sees me on an off night where I like flip some things around in my head, I might be explaining my stupid point in like the worst way possible, and they might just be like, what is this guy's problem? Like, I don't know, a good clean joke though.
And I was only kidding. He has very good jokes. I was just
not really, but all right. I asked my blind friend, are you into like listening to movies more or reading? And he said, oh, that's easy. I prefer to read, hands down. I mean, that's got to be way better reading by braille. I mean, like a blind person getting to read like a romantic novel. That's like getting to second base with a book. Right?
I like that one.
I gotta wonder about blind people though. When they die, do they see the light, or do they just feel around purgatory?
Oh,
you asked for it.
very funny.
Yeah,
Good.
I have to get in that mode because after this, I have my second gig.
I
ever,
heard.
so,
Yeah, good for you.
So hopefully I don't hurt my voice. Hopefully I can take what I've learned. But I actually did want to ask before we wrap up, like, who is your favorite stand-up comedian, or like what are your favorite comedy
favorite
movies
stand-up comedian? Wow. Well, I love Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, so we've already talked about them.
Yeah.
I definitely think they're really important observers and commenters on human nature and society.
Incredible insight.
And amazing insight. And who else is out there that I like? Actually, oh God, what's his name?
Will Smith.
Jim Garofalo. No.
Oh, Jim Gaffigan?
Jim Gaffigan.
Jim Gaffigan.
Hilarious.
Honestly, I was never a fan until Danny and I started watching him. This was during the lockdown, and he had a couple specials on Netflix.
Yeah.
And we were watching him.
He's amazing.
And I finally got him. I totally got him, and I love him now.
Yeah,
So,
he's incredible.
Yeah, he's also another amazing observer of human behavior and society.
Yeah, I haven't
really
seen
good.
him live yet, but I do. We almost did a couple years ago. He was at the, believe it or not, I think he was at the Lucille Ball Museum. They do like and we were going to go. My wife and I were going to go, and then we just never made. I guess they have like a comedy tour that goes through there.
Yeah.
And he was on it, and he's pretty unique. He's got really good insights in the just he observes things that you just don't.
Exactly.
Like any great comedian.
And his delivery is just this very deadpan kind of, soft-spoken approach.
Yeah.
And we loved Lewis Black, of course.
Yeah, he's great too.
Did you see him when he was here? He was at, I was there too.
Oh, you were?
Of course. At UPAC, right? Yeah, of course. We were there.
Yeah, we were there.
That was a good, I just love him because I'm angry and it's nice to hear somebody just.
We love hearing him rant.
Yeah,
we love his rants.
It's amazing.
Speaking of rants, rest in peace, Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh.
Yeah, I was so sad to hear about that. I mean,
that was
I didn't realize
sad.
that he was ill. I guess he was battling a long illness, they said.
Yeah, I
they
couldn't remember
didn't
the
say
name.
what,
Right.
though. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
Young,
mean,
67. So sad.
Wasn't too young to get canceled, though. They got rid of him. Affleck got rid of him for a silly
so
joke.
Sad.
But he also healed the entire country by doing after the September 11th attacks, and he comes out and he does that aristocrats joke.
Oh my
I haven't
God!
seen. I've heard him do the
yes.
Aristocrats, but I didn't.
This was legendary
Yes.
because he can't. I think this is what it was, right? It was after 9/11,
think
and he
so.
comes out and does the filthiest. Like it was exactly what was needed, like to just
Right.
kind of like raise everybody's spirit, but so incredibly fearless that he would do that then, and that's I
Amazing.
remember him kind of coming back into the public after that.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very sad.
Yeah.
Thanks for ending the interview that way. Bob.
Yeah. quick elbow. See, palate cleanser.
Yeah, shout out to Gilbert and what an amazing entertainer.
Well, I mean, like his big cancellation though was like the big like tsunami in Japan.
It was a joke.
Yeah, like
I don't even remember this.
He made a joke about something about floating bodies, something black comedy, but like totally par for Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I don't remember.
Yeah, you seem like you don't have like a big sensitivity for comedians, but other comedians that kind of like piss you off with like their antics, like
No, you know who used to piss me off though was oh God, I don't know if I can remember his name. He was like a real Italian.
Andrew Dice Clay.
Yes, thank you.
He's a Jew.
I thought he was Italian.
No, that's his character.
Oh, well, that character pissed me off.
Yeah, that was the whole point.
Well,
his name
know.
is Andrew Silverstein.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I believe that's his actual.
I mean, I knew he was doing a character, but I didn't like that character.
Yes, a lot of people did. He got canceled several
He
times,
did.
and then he's doing fine. I saw him on tour like maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then he got into acting, and actually, I thought he was good
He's great.
as an actor.
And even as an actor, before he was canceled for the first time, I loved his movie. Like he did this Ford Fairlane Private Investigator.
oh, you've told me about that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
No one liked it. I loved it. I mean, I absolutely loved it. And I've seen him on tour, and he's an amazing entertainer.
Yeah, no, he is an entertainer.
But he did annoy some people.
Yes, he did.
I knew you were. As soon as you said, I'm like, I know what she's talking about, Dice. But I'll let her finish before I step in it. But yes, I knew that's what you were talking about.
Yeah, classic villain comedian. He's kind of like a heel in like a wrestling match, I feel like.
Yeah,
He's like
he was misogynistic, and
yeah.
that kind of stuff like got to me. But
Yeah. I don't blame you. That's nice.
that was his thing.
It was a character, though.
He did it
caricature.
well. I'll give him that. He did it well.
Yeah.
First comedian to sell out the Garden.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty common now, but in 1989,
no,
he
it
was
wasn't.
a rock star comedian, literally a
Wow.
rock star comedian.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But you he did say some pretty terrible things.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
All
right. So how shall we end this, my friends?
Well, I was just gonna say, I'm glad we can talk about this diverse, like, swath of things. I mean, I've had such a great time chatting with you. But again, you're a badass, Machan. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank
and
you.
make sure you stream Heat. Machan's
Oh.
new single.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you're going to have other stuff coming up on. Is that on all streaming, or are you going to put videos on YouTube,
I'm
or is
gonna
it?
do both. You know,
Okay.
it's gonna be on all the different platforms, and
Wait,
you know.
we were talking about that before we started rolling, right? Your album that you got the rights back to.
Oh, right. Yeah, my first record, which we had done some gigs together, and you played some of those songs.
Yes. Yep.
I have the rights to that record, so I'm going to re-release that.
Okay.
And I also got the rights back to my second record, so I now own those masters, and so
Excellent.
I'm probably going to re-release them, or I may redo them. I don't
Okay.
know. We'll see.
So this is so on YouTube it's just Machan Taylor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the same for
And Spotify,
Okay.
Apple Music, all that stuff. It's,
Okay.
Yeah, my name.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Excellent.
Well, keep an eye out.
Did we get to it? We covered it.
I think we did it, Matt.
All right.
Thank you so much for
Thank
spending
you.
your afternoon with us, and
Yeah.
Tell Danny we said hi.
tell
I
Danny
will.
about Danny
here.
I will. I
And we
will.
all do the clap together.
Oh.
It's good.
Thank you so much for doing it, and we'll see you on the next one.
Woohoo! Yay!